This conference will now be recorded.
Awesome. Well, hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. In a little bit, we'll review best practices to attract and recruit top performing talent. Before we dive into that topic and learn more about our guest speaker, let's first review a few housekeeping items. If you didn't get a chance to join us on Monday, I'd encourage you to watch the recording of Jordan's webinar on our YouTube channel or through FrankConnect. In that webinar, he highlights why it's crucial to find the right people, plug them in the right seat, and give them the right tools. In the next hour, Jeffrey Bozil, the top performing VP of sales from ADP, will join us to review how he develops and maximizes his team's productivity. You definitely don't want to miss that one. Please stay tuned for his presentation and have your questions ready to learn from a sales executive whose team has been responsible for over $38 million in sales over the last 2 years. Please also remember that all of our live webinars, our guest speakers will be available to answer any questions after their presentation. You can do this one of two ways. You can type your questions in the chat box or simply unmute yourself. Now that we've gotten our housekeeping items out of the way, I'm excited to introduce today's esteemed guest speaker, Wayne Hruslinski. This past winter, Wayne and his wife Jen opened up PickUp USA Warminster. If you're lucky enough to visit, it's truly a showcase store. Even though they just opened and have mere months under their belt, they've quickly grown their sales to be the third leading store in monthly revenue across our system. This is no surprise, since before joining our PickUp USA team, Wayne was responsible for opening 2 Nike stores and has extensive experience putting together high-performing teams. I'm excited to hear from Wayne's experience at Nike and PickUp USA about the lessons he's learned to attract, vet, and hire productive team members. Now, without further ado, Wayne, please take it away.
Right. Thank you, Paulo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
So I'll just lead this conversation off by saying, just for transparency's sake, I was much more successful at Nike recruiting than I have been so far with PickUp USA. I'm sure I've experienced a lot of the same challenges that everybody else has had with finding the right candidate. But at the end of the day, the thing that I took over from any company that I've worked for is we're looking for energy and passion and enthusiasm. We used to say at Nike, we're selling sneakers for a living, we're selling a lifestyle, we're selling a brand, and it's similar here at PickUp USA in that we're selling basketball, and that's something we're all passionate about, and you got to try not to forget that. I know we look at it as like we have to, sell this membership or get as many people in the door as we can. We're really not selling membership. We're selling basketball through energy, passion, and enthusiasm. We're really trying to sell an experience. That's what I try and keep in mind here with PickUp USA. You can go to the next one. Yeah, and just a little bit about me. Like Paulo said, I did work for Nike prior to this, running $15 million buildings for Nike in the Philadelphia area. And then in addition to running buildings, I ran the community ambassador program in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, where we would work with kids at schools and in communities by getting them active through sport. Obviously, I love basketball. I played in high school. I played at college. I played all over the Philadelphia area for 30 years. My career's kind of wound down recently because my knees just haven't held up. But super passionate about the sport and basketball, and now I'm kind of living through it with my children. So I just thought that this was a perfect business opportunity for us. And then before I start the next slide, Paulo, can you give me 5 seconds? Can you just run through this, the recruiting piece of it for me? I'm just going to mute this for 5 seconds. I apologize.
Mm-hmm. What did you need, Wayne?
I think he just wanted you to run through the recruiting slide. I think a member just walked in.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so this is Wayne's slide deck. He's talking about, I guess, the different sources to recruit candidates. So before you buy anything of value, you want to make sure that you're getting what you really want. You want to feel good about what you're buying, so that's recruiting. So there's three potential sources for that. There's inbound, which is hoping that people essentially just walk into your gym. So what Wayne calls that is post and pray, right? There's outbound, which is sourcing them, so through our different channels like Indeed or different job post ads. And then there's internal sources, which is promoting from within. Now, when you're brand new, it's difficult to do that because you don't have anyone. But as you become more of a mature store, you're going to be able to self-identify the talent from within. And I personally think that's the most productive way to really develop your team, because they're proven commodities. They are already familiar with our system. They're bought into our culture. So if we can develop that talent from within, I think we're much better off.
Hey, I apologize, Paula.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, just had to take care of something really quick. I apologize. So, you know, starting off with the recruiting piece, um, it's the same as when you make a purchase. You want to make sure you're getting what you really want. If you're purchasing a car, a computer, clothing, sneakers, you want to make sure you feel really good about what you're buying. And that's kind of what recruiting is. You want to make sure you're good, you feel really good about the candidates that you're bringing in, and that, they're going to meet your expectations. And I think recruiting is one of the hardest parts of finding a candidate. And I think we get too caught up in the inbound recruiting. And I'm going to go through the three types of recruiting that we use. And if you look at inbound, it's post and pray. And that's pretty much the typical, post on Indeed, post on ZipRecruiter. And then you just pray you get the right candidate. And then the outbound recruiting, which is sourcing, and then the internal recruiting, which I've had the most success with at my career with Nike. And I kind of lost my roots here when I got to PickUp USA and forgot that piece of it, and have just recently gotten back to really looking inside my own company to see where the talent is and evaluate the talent. And we made some decisions over the past month that I think are really going to help take us to the next level. And it came from an internal candidate. And I'll speak about all three of those recruiting strategies. You could jump to the next one. So like I said about inbound recruiting, it's really a crapshoot. It's post and pray. You're posting openings on job boards, on social media, and then you're reviewing, ranking, and selecting candidates from the resumes and the applications that you get. It's a real reactive type recruiting because we're reacting to our incoming applicants. So people are coming to us with products. And think about when you're, purchasing a product. If you go into one of your favorite stores and you buy a pair of sneakers or you buy some clothing you like, you're sourcing your purchase. Think about when somebody knocks on your door at home to sell you something. Your first, reaction is like, should I even answer the door? So, that's kind of what inbound recruiting is almost. You're posting and praying that you're getting the right candidate. I found that, sourcing and internal candidates are really the way to go. And don't get me wrong, I do post my positions on social media and on the job boards, and I'm sure everybody else does. But I don't see the same quality of candidate as I do if somebody walked into the building and introduced themselves, or if I was out somewhere and recognized some talent in another facility or at a competitor. I found that to be much more successful. I hope that makes sense to everybody. You could jump to the next one.
No, totally.
So the outbound recruiting is when the inbound effort kind of fails to produce the right kind of talent. I'm sure we've all posted a position on Indeed and got 30 candidates, and you narrowed it down pretty quickly to like maybe 10 or less candidates. And a lot of people just, click on any job they see with basketball and think that they're qualified for it, and you're eliminating those candidates right away. So it's that whole post and pray. But with the outbound, or a job is especially unique, which I consider this one, you go hunting. You look for candidates that might not even be looking for a job. You may walk into another fitness facility. You may walk into a competitor, and talk to somebody or recognize somebody's energy and passion and enthusiasm, and and feel they may be a fit for you. And if you can get some information or drop a card off to them, maybe get them thinking about maybe, there's opportunities elsewhere. They may have not even been looking for another job, but these are the candidates that are most coveted by employers. Nobody else is competing for them because they don't even really know that they're looking for another job. When I was with Nike, I didn't just limit it to walking into an Adidas store. I looked at what other companies did that I really liked. For instance, Apple. I would go into the Apple store because they, did things similar to the way Nike did, and I would recruit there. Hey, if you're ever looking for something at Nike, here's my card. And the same thing here. You could walk into an LA Fitness or 24-hour Fitness. I actually maintain my membership at LA Fitness for that exact reason. If I ever, need a candidate, I can walk in there and just kind of observe for a little bit, shop my competitor, and then drop a card off. And you could be covert about it, and discreet. You don't have to make a big production about it, but just say something like, "Hey, I noticed how you were working with that customer. I really liked it. If you're ever looking for an opportunity elsewhere, here's my card." You'd be surprised. Like, I would say 80% of the people that you do that to will at least reach out for at least some information about what you're talking about. You may not get that candidate, but it will at least pique their interest. So we could jump to the next one. Internally, it's been where I've had the most success. You have to recognize talent from within, and I was really slow to do that here at PickUp USA, but it was what I really was most successful at with Nike, and I kind of lost my way when I first started out here. I went through 3 different managers before I realized that my best candidate actually works for me right now. And similar things have happened for me, and you can see a picture. 2 of my best employees are featured here, although Tim at the top, you only see his back. He's a PIAA certified ref who we're using now to train our current referees, and we see a bright future for him. And Cassie below is now our manager here, and she started off as a referee. I remember her first day on the job, like she really didn't even know, where she fit in or what she was even doing. And, she just took ownership every time she was here, and you start to see different things and you're like, wow, this is somebody who could, really excel for me in the future. And when things didn't work out in other directions, we recognized that and made a move. And if I had made that move from the beginning, I would be much further along than I am right now. And I can give you another example. At Nike, the first day I walked into a store in suburban Philadelphia, there was a gentleman working there as a cashier. And within 2 weeks, I recognized his talent. And I was like, why are you a cashier? Like, why aren't you in leadership? Why aren't you doing more for the company? And he's like, nobody ever really recognized or gave me a chance. And now that person is one of the higher performing leaders for Nike in one of our stores, and is a store manager out in one of our stores in the suburbs. So um, I think recognizing and promoting from within with people that are already familiar with the company, people who have gone above and beyond. Not only is it great for you and great for them, but it'll help promote a stronger culture in your building, because people will see that there are opportunities if they rise to the occasion. So I put in bold, your next leader or manager, maybe the referee on the court right now. And Paulo had told me that when I first started with the company, like, but I just, again, transparency, I just lost sight of that. And it wasn't until we came back around, my wife and I, and realized that, maybe the talent's right here, that we've been feeling much better about the direction we're going in. So please try and recruit from within, and have that in mind when you hire people. When you hire a referee, obviously you're going to get that person that just wants to ref, maybe a college student, but you never know. I mean, dive into, what interests them, get to know them, and maybe that's your future leader. So that's what's worked for us so far. You could jump to the next one. The next portion is actually the hiring piece, which again can become very complex. I like this quote from Walt Disney. You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world. But if you don't have the right people in place, it's never going to be a reality. We've built what I think is the best basketball facility in the Philadelphia area. We kind of broke the mold even from what PickUp USA originally did. We're in a retail location. We used a different type of flooring, a little bit different types of color, and we did some things differently that some of the other PickUp USAs are starting to do now. But if you don't have the right people in place, it doesn't matter how nice your facility is, it's not going to succeed. You need great people to make this place a reality. All right, see you later. So the three functions of hiring are obviously screening the candidates, interviewing the candidates, and selecting the candidates. And the screen you basically use to get your basics, your preferred, and your must-haves, and see where your candidate falls in. And I'm going to dive into all three of those things in the next few slides. So screen, interview, and select. And I'll talk about each of those things if you want to jump to the next one. So I always start off with a phone screen. If I'm, interviewing somebody externally, and that's just to determine the candidate's viability. First of all, and you can use this screen when you're meeting somebody in person as well. But do they meet your basics? Do they have energy, passion, and enthusiasm? Those are the things that I always come back to. I'm not as worried about as experience as those three things right there: energy, passion, and enthusiasm. We can teach and we can coach, but one thing you can't teach is energy. You can't teach passion, and you can't teach enthusiasm. Your candidate needs to have those three things. If they don't meet those basic requirements, then they're a no for me. And then next, you use the phone screen or the initial conversation to see if they have your preferred qualities. Do they have knowledge of PickUp USA and what we offer? Are they aware of our core values? And I always find that to be a plus if they've done a little bit of research about the company and they're familiar with our core values. But again, that is a preferred qualification. It's not a basic. It's something I would like to see, but it's not a deal breaker for me. And then I go to the must-haves. Could I see this person in the role? And if I could, and they meet the basics and some of the preferred and the must-haves, I could see them in the role. Only then am I moving them to the next step in the process. Early on, if I can't see the person in the role, I'm not going to move them to the next step in the process. Whether it's a referee, a manager, somebody in maintenance, a trainer, whatever it is, you have to really visualize them in the role. And they may not even visualize themselves in the role. It's just, do you visualize themselves in the, especially internal candidates, do you visualize them in the role? You could jump to the next one. This is a little cut off. I don't know. Oh, there we go. So interviewing is kind of I've done a lot of interviewing, and there's different formats for interviewing. I've done one-on-one interviewing with Nike. I've done panel interviewing with Nike, and you really have to get conversational and get to know people in the interview process. And I put a fact in here that a lot of hiring decisions are actually based on criteria that aren't at all related to how well a candidate will do in the job. 39% of people interviewed get rejected on their confidence level, their tone, whether they smiled in the interview. And again, that comes back to energy, enthusiasm, and passion. You'll know right away when you're meeting somebody. I mean, they may have passed your initial screen on the phone, but when you get to a face-to-face interview, if you can't see that energy, enthusiasm, and passion in the interview process, you're probably not going to see it in the job either. And then there are two types of interview styles: the structured, where you have questions that you have set up in advance and you focus on core competencies. I have a hiring guide that I kind of developed, and I've shared it with Paulo, and he can email it out to anybody who's interested. And it takes questions that we used from Nike, some questions that I use here, and I just made this packet of interview questions that my wife and I and my managers have used to hire for. But in a structured interview, you know what you're looking for from each question. You ask the questions in the same order each time, and you can go off script, but you always return to it. And that's a structured interview. The unstructured, I always start off with the structured interview. The unstructured interview kind of takes place further down the line, where you let the interview unfold like a conversation. You do have general topics you want to cover, but not in a specific set of questions or any agreed in order. Structured interviews are more effective overall. That's why I start with those. The unstructured conversational type interviews are something I do later down the line when we talk about, pay and benefits and that type of thing. Because the unstructured interviews don't really give you a good predictor of job performance. It's like flipping a coin. Structured interviews are where you can ask specific questions, such as what did you do in this situation, or what were your sales goals at a previous job, and it'll give you a good predictor of knowledge and where job performance will be. So I always start off there. You could jump to next. Then the two type of questions, and I think I spoke about this a little bit, and I can send out my interview, or Paulo could forward my interview guide to anybody that's interested. They're the behavioral
What I'll
questions.
do, Wayne, sorry to interrupt, is I'll add it to Frank and X so it'll be available for everyone there.
Yeah, and some of the questions are taken directly from Nike's interview packets that we had, and they were pretty extensive and thoroughly researched over the years. And some of them are offshoots of some of those questions that I tailored more for our brand. But the behavioral interviews focus on past behavior, so you can see how candidates have done in their previous working life. And I mentioned a couple of these earlier. Time you failed to reach a sales target. How did you handle it? We talk about setting goals and, holding people accountable. So if your manager doesn't reach a sales target, how do they handle that? You want to know what their demeanor's like, and that's a behavioral question that'll give you some insight into what their day-to-day is going to look like. Or, something that I find a lot of value in is a time you misunderstood an important task, and how did you handle that situation? These type of behavioral questions give you insight into, real situations that employees have worked in. On the other hand, the situational questions kind of give you an idea of how your candidates react under pressure, their creativity, their ability to think. So um, it's more reactionary, like give an example of a mistake they might make and ask them how they react. Um, Ask them how they measure performance at their current company or how they feel they would measure performance for us. That gives them a chance to think, and you can kind of get an idea, where their thought process is and if it aligns with yours. So those are the two type of questions that we ask in the interview. And then what do we look for? Again, energy, enthusiasm, and passion. And all of these things that I've highlighted here, um, dive into that. What's their body language look like? The candidate's body language and energy can give insight to how they're feeling, the type of person they are, and how interested they are in your opportunity. Um, they may just be feeling you out and really not into it. And you can tell that by their body language, if they're locked in or not. Work ethic and attitude. Um, be on the lookout for language that indicates the candidate has had difficulties working with colleagues or management in the past. Ask questions to, see how the candidate handles, heavy workload, shifting priorities, and organization. I'm always astounded when somebody puts on their resume that they left a job because they couldn't get along with somebody or they had difficulties in their previous job. I wouldn't even put that on my resume. I mean, that's like if they're willing to put that on their resume, uh, God only knows what they're going to tell you when you get them in an interview process. So I kind of stay away from that candidate because I'm not looking for, to bring in any sort of problems into the business. Um, is the candidate willing to learn? Do they ask a lot of questions? Are they curious? Um, my manager right now, um, she probably asks me 25 questions a day, and it's really good for both of us because it gets both of us to think. And she wants to continually learn and add new skills. And the more questions they ask, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, even when they're in the role. I know she sometimes, my manager, Cassie, she probably thinks she's bothering me by asking me this question or that question. But I actually enjoy that type of dialogue. So if your candidate that you're interviewing is willing to learn and they ask a lot of questions, as long as they're relevant, that's a good sign. And I don't mean questions like, you know, how many hours a day am I going to work? How many days off am I going to get? You want to know that they're asking questions that are like really relevant to the business, like, how do we connect with our consumer, or how do we, what's the best technique for selling this type of membership? So it's the right type of questions and their willingness to learn. One of the things that we always ask at Nike and we ask here is, what is their passion? And you should be asking your employees this even after you hire them. Their passion, obviously they have a passion for basketball if they're applying with us. They may have other passions outside the job too. If you can get somebody to speak about their passion, you can really get them to open up. I'm passionate about basketball. I'm a sneakerhead. I'm passionate about footwear, but I'm also passionate about my kids. And if you talk to me about my kids, it really gets me to open up about other things. So, dive into what people are passionate about. It'll really help you figure out what makes your candidate tick, and you can get some really good insight into whether they'll be a fit for you or not. And then finally, pay attention to the questions they ask. Like I said, they should be enthusiastic about the role. The questions should be about the job, your company, and the culture. Again, not about, hey, how many hours am I going to work? What are my days off? It's the questions need to be insightful, and that'll give you an indication of how enthusiastic they are about their future role with your company. You can jump to next. finally, these are, the 5 questions that you want to ask yourself with a candidate. And these are all employees of mine right here. 1, can the candidate do the job? Are they motivated to do the job? Are they interested in learning new skills? Are they coachable? That's huge. I've hired people that I thought were coachable, because you're never going to hit on every candidate, and when you get them in there, they don't take feedback very well. They're not coachable. That's not somebody who's going to succeed with your company. People have to be coachable, have to be willing to take feedback. And then finally, are they a fit for your culture? Look beyond the skills and how they look on paper, because the best candidate should have the most necessary skills and the potential to grow and be a culture fit for your team. So these 5 questions to me are very important, especially number 4. Jump to next. Thank you. The ideal candidate. So reference checks can be conducted after an interview. It kind of, establishes the level of honesty and sincerity that was exhibited during the interview process. I will tell you from a professional point of view, and a lot of you probably already know this, companies are very cautious to give references these days. So you just kind of have to know the right questions to ask. And I just put 4 examples. How long have you been the candidate's manager? Some of the easiest or most challenging experiences you encountered while managing them. They may not be willing to answer that. But number 4, I think, is telling. If you can get somebody on the phone and they'll give you an answer to number 4, that may tell you all you need to know. Would you hire them again? Why or why not? And again, companies these days are very hesitant to give a job reference, just from a legal perspective. So if you can at least get question number 4 out there and an answer to it, that should give you enough insight to have confidence in your decision.
Sorry to jump in, Wayne, but that number 4, I think it's also useful to ask ourselves that, right? Of the employees that we currently have. So if we had an opportunity to hire the employee that we currently have in that position again, would we? And it's very telling. So we can make decisions based off that as well. So I love that question.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because my wife and I, who's my partner in this, we just asked ourselves that question 3 weeks ago. When we really said we want to reboot this experience, because we're in a slower time right now, and we really want to reboot everything. And we asked ourselves that question, and we actually, grouped our employees into tiers of yes, no, maybe, if we had to do it all over again. So it is an important question to not only ask at the beginning, but, throughout your time. And then finally, the job offer. I try and put together the same, and I can share my offer letter. It's pretty much something I put together based on past experience, and but it includes the job title, job description, a start date, what their schedule is going to look like, who they report to, obviously salary with compensation and the bonus or commission. I've had a lot of owners reach out to me about this question, what we pay people, and and I'm pretty transparent about that. What their paid time off looks like, what their benefit structure looks like if you're offering benefits, and then what the termination conditions look like. I like to use language that everybody is an at-will employee, just to protect myself in the business. And again, I can share an offer letter. I can send it to Paulo if anybody's interested in that. I can make my offer letter available, which includes all 9 of these things in it. Have a backup plan, because your top candidate may be interviewing for multiple jobs. So we've probably all been ghosted by somebody that we thought may be a really strong candidate. It's happened to me everywhere I've ever been. But signs you're about to lose your top candidate, pretty obvious if they stop returning phone calls or texts. If they ask for extended time to think about the offer, they may be mulling other offers at the same time. Um, we had a really strong candidate months ago. My wife and I, we felt really great about this person. We brought them in for the final interview, and suddenly the whole topic of conversation just became about money. And we knew that right away he wasn't going to take a position with us because it just became all about money. So make sure you have a backup plan. You've only really filled your vacancy when your candidate has accepted the offer, come on board, and started making a positive impact. So, I'll tell you that I've had a manager that I thought that had accepted the offer, we hired, and after a month or 5 weeks still hadn't made a positive impact, and we parted ways with them because until they're making a positive impact, you have not filled your vacancy. Okay, thank you. I always like to talk about employee retention. Employee retention makes the recruitment process more efficient. Obviously, it saves you time, it saves you money. Um, Employee turnover definitely affects morale and engagement within the organization. And your more experienced employees tend to deliver a better customer service experience. Um, and your more experienced and engaged employees are your best salespeople. Not because they're selling membership or selling a service, but they're your brand ambassadors. So they're always hyping up your business when they're out doing their thing. If they're positive about where they work, if they're out to dinner and somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm a ref or I'm a trainer. Oh, wow, that's cool. Where at? And they're talking and they're engaged. They're your best salespeople without even trying. So, um, the better your retention is, your greater your customer loyalty will be because they're seeing the same familiar faces when they come in. They're being greeted. Your employees are creating a personal experience with the consumer. Your employees are satisfied. They're delivering a better customer experience, and it's building better relationships for you. Um, High retention rates increase productivity. It can take 2 years for new hires to become as productive as existing employees. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily true here at PickUp USA, but it's definitely true in some other companies that I've been. And that add a heading is a misprint, so sorry. Retain your best employees. So you may not believe this, but it is true. When I was at Nike, we did an extensive, and Nike North America, there was over 10,000 employees. We did extensive employee surveys, and obviously money is important to everybody, but 55% of employee engagement is driven by non-financial recognition. People like to be recognized for the job they do more than money. It's 1-2, and it's very close, obviously 55 to 45%. But if you recognize your employees and pat them on the back and give them recognition for the job they do, it makes them feel a lot more valued than just money. And it's the key to retention. Recognition affects retention. If you're not recognizing your employees, you're going to lose them. And employees who were appreciated during the past month were less likely to consider a new job. So make sure you're, recognizing your employees. Sometimes when I'm doing observations in our pickup games and our refs are making calls, and my team will tell you this, like I'll goof around and like my ref Josh will make a call and I'll be like, "Yeah, Josh," and he'll start laughing, but I'm just kind of like making it fun and recognizing him in the moment. Or they make a particularly like demonstrative call with like a charge, and I'm like, and they make it fun, and I'm like, I'll shout out, I'm like, "Yeah, that was awesome." So recognizing your employee is very important. And as is the work-life balance, that's very important in today's workforce. Respect your employees' time off, have flexible scheduling, and encourage employees to enjoy their time away from the job. Like sometimes I have to kick my manager out of here, um, and because I want them to enjoy their personal space. And sometimes when I kick her out of here, she comes back an hour later to play and officiate a game. So, it just shows you how passionate she is about the place. But you do want people to have their personal time and enjoy time with their families and respect their work-life balance. And then finally, what we talked about, you know, promoting from within, recognize your talent, promote from within, and your company's culture will improve dramatically. 86% of employees derive job satisfaction from career development, and they want opportunities to move ahead and succeed. So recognize that and try and give opportunities to your employees. Yeah, our slogan is a better way to play, and try and make it a better place to work too, by using some of these tools. And I hope this was helpful. And any of the following documentation I can provide, to Apollo, and he can forward it to anybody.
No, that was fantastic, Wayne. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. A very thorough kind of deep dive into best practices of recruiting top talent, which is critical, right? For us to really, as owners and managers, to kind of remove ourselves from the business and let the technicians do their thing, let the managers do their thing, so we can focus on bigger strategy items. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
We're a little over time, but that said, I do want to open up the floor for any of our audience to ask Wayne any questions they have pertaining to this topic. So I see some questions in the chat box. Great stuff, Wayne. Very informative. We'll use for when I start hiring. When you hire someone, do you do a trial period? Example, do you have a 3-month trial period?
We don't really have a trial period. It's not like I don't hire somebody saying, we're going to give you 3 months to, or this much time to, do your job. We're just constantly coaching and training and developing. So I don't really do a trial period. If it's not the right candidate, though, I've had to take a different philosophy with Nike. Our philosophy was to coach up, and really exhaust every avenue before parting ways with somebody. I'm not Nike. I can't afford to do that. I'm not a multi-billion-dollar company. So you have to really evaluate, have your team help you evaluate. And, this goes against everything I was taught in the past, but you have to be able to part ways with people when they're not meeting expectations. I had somebody that I had to part ways with yesterday who started out as a superstar for us, but over the past month has really taken a turn for the worse, and I had to part ways with them because they just they were not meeting expectations anymore and really had no desire to turn it around.
Great stuff. Yeah, and JR asked, will this training be accessible? Yes, as with all of our webinars, the recording will be uploaded to YouTube and shared via Frank Connect shortly after the conclusion of the webinar. Let's field one more question if anyone has any. Seems like the audience is good. So this is amazing. The last slide that you had there, Wayne, was about retention and also developing talent. So I think that's a great segue into this upcoming webinar, which is going to start in about 16 minutes. So everyone can take a little break and then join in on that. The top selling VP and ADP will be leading that webinar, reviewing how to develop the talent once you recruit them, following Wayne's principles, and maximize their productivity. So I'll see everyone then. Wayne, thank you so much again. This was wonderful. I'll share some of the interview questions that Wayne has shared with me. I'll upload that in Frank Connect shortly for everyone to view.
All right,
cool.
Thanks,
everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Wayne.